Hello everyone. My name is Sajesh and I'll be your host for today. I'm really excited about today's webinar and hope you are too. Just a quick introduction. So my name is Sajesh Sahadevan. I handle product marketing for MoEngage. And I'm sure all of you know that we launched MoEngage Analytics almost a year ago. Lately, I've been working on the marketing side of MoEngage Analytics. And we've got Anand, who's the product manager for MoEngage Analytics, and he's the man behind all of the analytics features that you use to keep track of your user data. Now, I know you didn't tune in to hear me talk, so without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Anand and let him dive deeper and take you through the journey of today's webinar.
Thanks, Harish, and thanks everyone for tuning in for today's webinar on to turning data into insights. I'm Anand Rajput. I'm handling analytics and segmentation product at MoEngage. For today's webinar, rather than we just showing you how it is possible, we rightly want to dive into our user stories, how our or MoEngage customers are turning their data and getting a lot of insights and taking action on top of them. So we do collect data. A lot of data reside in various of our system, but we don't know, or sometimes we do ignore that data, that how insights can be driven from that. So let's take an example for one of our customer, which is Wink Music. It is one of the largest OTT player in India. They have a question in front of them that they wanted to know how much engagement is driven by their growth team. Is growth team effective enough to get a lot of traffic onto their app and also drive the engagement and the conversion? So what they wanted to know is MAU driven by the organic traffic or the MAU driven by the efforts from the growth team or the marketing team. So what they did, they went ahead and analyzed their data. They analyzed data into the overall traffic versus the organic traffic and versus the traffic which is driven by the push notifications. So they could get the numbers, or the, I would say, monthly active user organically or versus driven by marketing efforts. They also did one more analysis where they were able to quantify the number of active days in a month for a specific user across their organic traffic or the traffic which was driven by the marketing notifications. So this is what Wing did for their attribution of the marketing efforts. But for your app, this may not be only criteria that you would want to look into. The other criteria that we do suggest that each and every marketer should also look into is how many active minutes your users are spending on your app, and is it driven organically or they are coming inorganically. So apart from that, you can also look at the number of sessions which are coming from various different sources and the conversion that you're getting from other sources. So here you can directly quantify how much of your marketing efforts are driving your session or conversion, or how much time users are spending on your app using the click of a push notification.
Great. I'm glad you brought this up, Anand. So oftentimes, marketers and product owners stop at looking at traffic coming from various sources, which, in my opinion, is a vanity metric. It's important to see what happens after the user lands on your site, on your website or your app, and looking at the sessions and maybe the time spent on the session and the bounce rate, and also looking at how much conversion is coming in through the various sources is really important. Now, it would be great if you could walk us through the MoEngage dashboard, Anand, and show us how this can be put into practice.
Yes, said rightly, Sarish, because we should not be dependent only on one metrics for this. So let's say the Wings use case. This is not Wings data. This is MoEngage's demo account, and hence we would want to show how to execute the use case that Wing did. So here we want to analyze how many users are coming on the Android, and this is the total number of users. So let me just go ahead and run the query again. I think almost 20,000 users I'm getting organically, but let's say I want to analyze how many users are coming using push notification. Yeah, so people are receiving the notification in the last 7 days, let's say. And now I would want to know this is the traffic which is driven by my push notifications. So this is almost 15,000, which is 75% of traffic is driven by my push notifications. Similarly, I can also know how much of the traffic is coming pretty much organically and people are not clicking on this notification. Other part that we have spoken about is the information about the source and session. We can know on the MoEngage tool, we can directly know where the traffic is coming from and how much of the users are attributed to various different sources. So this is the organic traffic, which a marketing team may not have played a lot of role, but the traffic which is coming from Google, MoEngage, Facebook, or YouTube, these are the session driven by the marketing efforts. So this is just the session, but we can also know the information about the revenue, conversion, or the bounce rate as well. So we could know how much of this information or how much of this traffic is driven by the marketing team. So this is how we do analyze how our marketing teams are effective and how much business growth or the engagement growth that these guys are driving. Moving to the second story, where we talk about how marketing teams can challenge the industry norms. In this case, we would want to take an example of Bukla Park. They are one of the largest e-commerce and retail player in Southeast Asia. Often we receive a lot of reports about the market standards and industry standards, that how many notification we should be sending and what is the ideal spot of the notification. So they wanted to question that, yeah, this is the number of notification that my users should receive, but could it be increased or should it be different for various different users? And hence they wanted to find a sweet spot of how many notifications that these guys should send for their own users. So what they did, they went ahead and start then experiments with their own data. So what they did is they divided this entire user segment into various different cohorts based on the user behavior or the user properties. Now, after having this various different segment, they started sending them the notification. The frequency of the notification also varied on time to time. And when user engaged with those notification or user did not engage with those notification, they have recorded that and they have correlated how a notification which is sent to a specific segment those notification are driving engagement or those notification are driving the uninstall. Using that, they would be able to figure out what is the sweet spot of the notification for a specific cohort or a segment. So oftentimes people do rely on the market or the industry standards, but these are not a set rule. These are the points to begin with. They should be taken into account because let's say when we talk about industry like OTT or a music or a content app, as a music listener, I will be willing or I will be open to receiving daily notification from an app, and I'll be okay with that. But an industry like travel or a flight booking or a hotel booking website or an app, if they are sending me a daily notification, I would not be open to that. I will block those notification or I would uninstall that app. So industry does matter a lot. Second is the market standards. When we talk about markets like North America or Europe, these markets do have very low tolerance towards the notifications. So these, if you send a lot of notification in North America or Europe, people might block your notification or uninstall the app. But if you are in India or if you are in Asia or I would say Southeast Asia, the tolerance for the notifications are quite high. You can send a lot of notification and people do expect to receive a lot of notification in this market. But how much notification that we should send to a specific user, that would still vary. So we need to identify user we need to identify user at a personal level and find the user's acceptance of the notification. So the entire user segment should be divided into various different groups, and these different groups should receive or should be targeted using various different push notification. We should not send the entire group. We should not send the notification to the entire group. Rather than we should run the experiment in a very controlled manner. Only 10 to 20% of the users should receive this test notifications or the notification that you're sending, and then analyze how these guys are behaving. Are they uninstalling or are they engaging with the app?
Great. I'm glad that you mentioned that. I think it's important to look at industry standards and market standards to begin with, because that gives you a baseline of what you want to, where you want to start your experiment. But your users are unique, so you need to look at the user data and take into account their behavior, which is where analytics can be really powerful, right? It can give you nuances about your users that can show you opportunities that would otherwise be left unexplored. So you're basically leaving money on the table if you just go with industry standards and not experiment. So Bukala Park did this experiment and they saw tremendous results. Uh, just like the previous example, Anand, could you take us through the dashboard and could you take us through how this can be done in practice?
Sure, Sajeesh. So let's talk about some of the funnel example. Let's say you would want to send a notification to a specific group, and then you would want to analyze if they are engaging with or not. What you could do here is you can select a lot of different custom segments or the segment that you have created to analyze their frequency, and then you can analyze if they are engaging with your notification or not, if they are clicking on that, and they are moving forward in the journey. So here you can analyze using funnel analysis. You can analyze if users are engaging with your push notification or not. Another thing that we can also do is if they are uninstalling the app after that. So similarly, we can directly correlate if the users are accepting your notification or they are uninstalling the app. But at this point, making a segment becomes a lot more important. How do you divide your various different segment into, I would say, tangible groups where you can define that this is a champion user, this is a good user, or this is a bad user? For that, we generally do use what we call as RFM or the predictive segments. What we do, we using this particular feature, we can analyze your entire user base and divide them into various different groups. So what we do is we take recency, frequency, and monetary event of the app and run the RFM modeling. It runs almost instantly on the MoEngage dashboard, and it divides our entire user group into various different segments. Now we know which one of your champion user, who are your price sensitive users, who are the users who are just lost, or the users who are just about to sleep. So now you know that sending a notification or a heavy number of notification to a champions is not a good idea, because they are already a loyal customer, they are already engaged with the product. Sending an irrelevant notification to price sensitive user of a product which is a highly priced, you may not want to send that notification. Or sending a notification to about to sleep user which may not be relevant for his requirement is not relevant. So we need to make our strategy right, send relevant notification. So in case of price sensitive user, we send notification of the deals, of the highest deal or the product which are very highest rated. For the lost users who are not coming into your platform, you would want to send notification about your product and services, new launches, and just make sure that you're available for them all the time. For the recent user, you would want to make sure that they make the first transaction or they take your onboarding journey, and analyze if they are taking the onboarding journey or not. So using these RFM segmentation, you can create the segment that you would want to target, and then identify what is the notification sweet spot for all of these specific segments, and then figure out how many number of notification that you should send to maximize the gain on the marketing efforts that you're having. So coming back to the third story, and this is where I would say a lot of uh, analysis do come into the play, where we as we marketer do know that the data about user do reside in various different systems. Some of your data may be into MoEngage system, some of your data is in your own company system, and some of the data may be with the third party vendor. Let's say you most of the people do start with Google Analytics because it is free, and a lot of data is also there. So when we talk about Tokopedia, which is one of the Southeast Asia's largest e-commerce player, they wanted to unify all of this users data and create a unified profile, and want to know each and everything about their user and that user data. So how did they go about it? So the very first challenge in this is to identify the right data sources. You want to identify those data sources which have tangible data about your users and can also provide information which is worthwhile. So in this case, they did an exercise and found out that their user data and the tangible data exist in MoEngage systems. MoEngage has a lot of data about clickstream and also about the campaign information. Second is the data which is residing into Tokopedia system itself. And third, a lot of data that they have, because they have been using GA from some time, they have a lot of data about attribution and session into Google Analytics as well. So what they did, they went ahead and then stitched all of this data using MoEngage Open Analytics, where they will able to combine all the data of these three systems and create a unified user profile. So this unified user profile have all the data that a marketer could possibly have in all of their entire system. It gives information right from the start, where the user came from what all different sources he's coming from, what all action he's doing, what all action he's not doing, what all devices that a user is using, if he's interacting with the product, how much he's interacting with the product, and if he's purchasing or not purchasing. So this entire user profile across various different systems gave them a lot of edge in terms of the use cases that they were able to run using only one system. Now using data from various different systems, they are able to run a lot of different use cases which they were not able to run before. So what MoEngage was able to do is MoEngage was able to open up the entire data that MoEngage has within its data centers to Tokopedia directly, and Tokopedia can then now connect it to any of the visualization tool. In this case, they were using Tableau. Sometimes they are also directly using their code to get the data. So what MoEngage Open Analytics does is it opens up the data for you and give it to and will be able to display it in any of the visualization tools. And it is also developer friendly, where you can use the Redash is also a visualization tool. So with this, these are our three data stories where marketers are turning their own data and taking a lot of insights and taking it forward. Over to Sujesh.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Anand. As a marketer, I love hearing stories and stories that can be put into practice right after our listeners get back to work are the best ones. Now let's jump right into the question and answers. I'll pull up all the questions that we have and we'll go over uh, them one by one. So Somashekar wants to know how. Somashekar wants to know how you can create events like add to cart. Could you show us, or could you tell us about how to create the event first of all, and give us an example on the dashboard, Anand?
So these events, so when we talk about events creation does happen on the SDK side. So what we need to do is, when you are sending your data, you need to configure the add to cart at an when a user is adding a product to the cart. And then you can analyze that particular event onto MoEngage Analytics. So let's say if you have configured your event right. So let's say I would want to analyze add to cart here, and I can directly analyze add to cart event onto the MoEngage dashboard. But the prerequisite for this is when you are integrating with MoEngage Analytics, you need to send this particular event using your SDKs or the web SDK or the iOS or Android SDK. So while integrating, you need to send that particular event to MoEngage, and it will be rightly available in the dropdown for you to analyze. Now you can also break this particular event based on any of the platform, or maybe let's say product name. So I would just try to split the add to cart event based on the product name that's are available. So a lot of analysis is possible of slicing and dicing of the add to cart. So let's say there are some product names which are available over here. This is just the MOG data, hence it is showing something like that. So yeah, some Anit or Sweta Antique, these are the product names that we could break into. Yeah, let's see the next question.
Awesome. Thanks, Anand. The next question is about a feature we recently rolled out. Sankalp wants to know, how do you perform RFM analysis? What's the logic behind it? And I guess, how do you calculate the RFM scores?
Yeah, Sajesh. So as the name specify, RFM is recency, frequency, and monetary. So we take all of the users in an account and see how recent they are, how many times they are coming to a website, and how much they have spent. Now we rank all of the user based on highest recency to lowest recency, highest frequency, let's say 30 or 50 times to lowest frequency, which is let's say one time or zero times. Highest monetary value, let's say someone spending thousands of dollars versus users who are not spending anything. Now we have categorized these user into high, mid, and low, three different buckets for recency: high frequency, mid frequency, and low frequency. Similarly, high monetary value, mid monetary value, and low monetary value. Now system will determine all of these different buckets. So if you calculate, they will be 27 different buckets, but based on their similar behavior or similar traits, we do combine them and do provide 10 unique buckets. So a champion may have let's look at the stable champion may have a very high recency score, very high frequency score, and very high monetary score. And he came, champions are very recent, frequency is also very high, and monetary value is very high. So based on that, and when we club and based on this, we do group the users and provide the user count. So we do bucket them and also combine some of the buckets based on their behavior. And this is how we do calculate RFM. So what system does is it looks at all of the users, know their recency, frequency, and monitoring, and bucket them accordingly. So a lot of the times, the system is running in the background. It is by default calculating by its own. The logic here is that grouping the user based on their high, mid, or low values on the recency, frequency, or the monetary scale.
That was great. Thanks, Anand. I would like to urge users to keep the questions coming in. We have a few great questions here, but if you have any burning question, please type it in. So the next one is from Prasanna, and he wants to go over some of the use cases for driver apps. So Anand, for instance, Uber, Ola, sorry, Uber and Ola, I mixed up both the names.
Yeah.
So how would a marketer at say Ola would use analytics and leverage the data that they collect?
So I would say in this case we can directly know a lot of ways where we can utilize the data that we have at hand. We know that how many of your users are champions or how many of your users are about to sleep. So in this case, when we talk about a driver app, you would want to define that a good driver is the driver who's doing a lot of rides and he's accepting a lot of rides. So rather than monetary value, you would want to know, you can directly just calculate the RF model. Here we would know that how recent the user is and how frequently he's coming into app. So that we need to see that if he's frequently, then he's a good user, but a user who's not frequent, who is just coming one or two times, maybe they are not getting the right incentive or the right product or the service, or they are not getting more number of rights in their area. So we need to bucket these user and first analyze that why exactly the way they are behaving. In this case, because driver exactly want a lot of business from your app, hence he has signed up. So we need to look up that are they getting a lot of requests in that area or not, or are they happy with the destination that they are getting into. So from RFM analysis, we can know who are the users who are not happy with the app, and maybe from the product point of view, you can directly talk to them and understand what is the pain that they are getting into. Another second thing that we could do is we can identify the pattern of the champion users, the users who are loyal to you, and then know that what these guys are doing, what these guys are not doing, what offers or products are working for them, and maybe try to replicate the same offers or the product or service for the other drivers as well. I hope this answers your question. If not, then please drop me a mail as well.
Great. So the next question is about open analytics.
Yeah.
Manish wants to know what visualization tools can you integrate with open analytics?
So with MoEngage Open Analytics, we are able to integrate all of the visualization tool that we have present. So what we use is Google BigQuery powering our Open Analytics or MoEngage Open Analytics, and it is very flexible in terms of connecting with any of the data visualization tool. So if you have MoEngage Open Analytics, you can connect to Tableau, you can connect to Data Studio, you can connect to Looker or Redosh, you can also connect to Power BI, which is Microsoft's visualization tool. So it has a very wide coverage in terms of visualization tool that it directly connects to. You don't have to write any query. You can just plug and directly start playing your data or getting the visualization ready onto your visualization tool. For all of our viewers, I would like to say that Data Studio, which is a very useful data visualization tool, and it is also freely available for each and everyone. So it would seamlessly connect with our open analytics and provide a lot of functionality over there. In fact, MoEngage does provide a lot of data visualization to our clients directly on the Data Studio as well.
Great. Thanks, Anand. That's all the time we have for today. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks, Anand.
Thanks, Ajish, and thanks everyone.